This is TWiT.
Unaccountably, there's a bunch of red dots on the G Suite status dashboard right now. And if you go to Down Detector, which is kind of I've just learned not the best place to go to find out if something's down because it's scraping tweets.
It's not. It's doing slightly more than tweets.
It's not scientific. They have a Chrome extension too, but if you look at the big Google, the big population centers in the Northeast and the West Coast, some severe outages. Something's going on. Don't know if it's Google alone or Google's interconnect.
And it does seem to be bringing down an awful lot of services like Uber and that sort of thing, which rely on Google's backbone in order to work. So
this message is the only message we have right now from Google, and this was at about an hour ago. Our team is continuing to investigate this issue. We'll provide an update by 2:33, which is 5 minutes from right now, with more information about this problem. Thank you for your patience. They say we're experiencing high levels of network congestion in the eastern U.S., affecting multiple services in the cloud, G Suite, and YouTube. And that's how I learned of it, because many of our live stream watchers are watching on YouTube Live.
Yeah, exactly.
And the chat room started reporting this a couple of hours ago. They're saying, hey, you're down.
I want to give a shout out to an excellent piece that Gizmodo's Kashmir Hill did back in January. I cut Google out of my life. It screwed up everything.
Yeah.
And
that was a marvelous piece of journalism.
Oh, all of that was fantastic. The series is phenomenal.
It was brave.
What she points out is, since Google is woven into the fabric of a lot of other third-party applications, that when she cuts out Google, she also cuts out her ability to navigate without maps.
Can't do anything.
She has Uber doesn't work anymore. And so if Google continues to go down like it's going down right now, it's going to be a ripple. Airbnb photos don't load, New York Times articles don't load.
People will know by the time they hear the show probably what really happened. But what we don't know is if the other services going down are going down because they're using Google's OAuth, or they're using some Google service for their backbone, or they're using something related to Google. You know, we're now in such an interconnected
it's so
world.
Interwoven with each other that it's...
And this is the same time where Google's trying to consolidate their power with Nest and controlling all those services.
Nest is down, by the way. Somebody told me his thermostat doesn't know what the temperature is.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. How do you know what the weather is?
This is why I don't have a smart home, to be honest with you. I mean, well, there's a couple reasons I don't have a smart home, but turning over control of my infrastructure to a company that I have to rely on to keep it running is up there, along with what are they doing with my data.
What would we do? What would life be like if Google were down for a week? I'm thinking back when I was a kid in 1965. The entire northeastern seaboard went dark for 13 hours. 30 million people without power. In fact,
wasn't there a spike in the birth rate about 9 months later? I seem to remember
but
that.
the death rate went up too. So.
Oh, well, okay.
9 months later.
And there was a story about a kid who had a stick and he was hitting telephone poles and lights went out just when he hit one telephone pole, and he thought for years he caused it.
It
wasn't. It was an interconnect. It was a similar situation where it was an interconnect. But that was pretty bad. This isn't like the power going out. We still have lights. We have cameras. But I have to think there are people watching live who can't see us. We are using Google Docs for our show rundown, so we know what to... You're not, Wesley. You'll be the only guy who knows what's going on. The rest of us will be going, I don't know what's happening. So what if you didn't have Google Search for a week? What if you didn't have Google Docs? What if you couldn't log into anywhere? What if Uber didn't exist for a week because of it? That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I think Amazon would be a lot worse, though.
Yeah. No, because Amazon's also clouds.
Yeah,
Amazon's
AWS,
it's the #1 cloud service in the world right now.
Yeah, for all we know, Amazon's down and Google's just running on AWS. That would be ironic, wouldn't it? But,
I feel like getting locked out of your consumer accounts would be less impactful than, again, some of the infrastructure, like again AWS or Google Cloud or all of the tools that Google has aimed at app developers. I think that's actually worse, because that's a layer that you can't see or perceive and that you don't understand how it impacts you until it's gone.
I think also we've got a slight advantage in that we're all of an age where we got around without the internet. We know how to read a map. We know how to, and I do worry with...
I couldn't get anywhere if I didn't have GPS. I just sit in the middle of the road.
You managed it perfectly well before GPS.
I know. I know, but I don't know. I don't know. Where do I turn? Lisa and I are driving down the highway. arguing over whether the GPS says to turn at the next one or not.
Yeah.
Nobody's thinking, well, what does the sign say?
Yeah, but you see, even with them, it's just like I'll be giving my wife directions. I go, turn right. No, not that right, the other right, and then you realise, it's me. But
So I don't know if this is related, but I do remember in 2014, August 12th, 2014, much of the internet went down because of something called 512K Day. And there has been some concern that
we're getting close.
768K Day should happen soon. In fact, it might have happened today. This is a weird problem. 512K Day, AT&T, British Telecom, Comcast, Sprint, and Verizon all went down because their BGP router tables could only accommodate 512,000 addresses. As soon as there were more than that, crash. This is the same problem. These are older routers, I would guess, 768K limit. And and by the way, you can check, there's a Twitter account that we could check, BGP4-table. It's only IP4 addresses. Currently, 778,915 IPv4 prefixes.
Oh.
So I'm wondering if maybe we hit that 768K limit.
And if anyone's going to hit it early, it's Google. So, it's...
I don't know. I mean, that's just an interesting
Yeah.
vulnerability I hadn't really even known about.
I got to a huge argument earlier this week with someone who insisted that the Y2K problem had been a complete fudge and it was just to give computer programmers jobs, and it nearly came to blows. It was just like, look, idiot. It's just
No.
The reason it wasn't a bigger problem is because
everyone pulled the
got all the
stops out.
COBOL programmers off the golf course and went to fix it.
Well,
my mom programs in COBOL.
It's a good skill to have at the moment.
Stock.
I do. I'm very lucky.
All her emails are in uppercase, but that's okay.
I'm concerned
You're
about
also not wrong about that.
bringing us back to tech. Tomorrow's WWDC.
Yes.
Right.
And Apple's doing a pivot to services. And this has got to have a cloud, I don't know, positive or negative about the announcement about them rolling out all the stuff and services and how everyone should rely on them. If the cloud is not reliable, if Google's not reliable, how will they adjust what they're going to present, saying that you can trust us? We're always there. I don't know how well that's going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably they've got some fairly... I mean, they've built the enormous campus. They've built the presentation room. If they haven't built a decent, solid fiber link in there, then they've only themselves to blame. But it's a valid point because the more we come to develop on these, we come to rely on these services, and the more the companies themselves come to rely on them as a service stream, these outages are going to become more and more expensive.
Yeah.
The question I have is one of the reasons Apple's done as well as it has is for quite a while. And I want to say quite a while because I'm not sure this is the case recently, but for quite a while, they had a premium retail experience. I know that recently there have been a lot of...
Are we saying overpriced with that?
Premium can mean so many things. But they were selling the idea of a premium retail experience. It was very high touch, very hands-on. And when you move to a services-based revenue stream, what I'm curious about is whether or not Apple's going to replicate this sort of high-touch experience that they've had with customers, or if they're going to go the same way that other services-based revenue streams have gone, where it's all, here is the FAQ. Feel free to guide yourself through the FAQ. Here is a chatbot you can talk to if the FAQ doesn't work. Here is the email address that you can send a frustrated email to. We may respond in 3 days. In the meantime, we're going to keep auto-charging your credit card $9.99 a month. Enjoy. I mean, this is something that I feel hasn't been adequately covered whenever any tech company says we're launching a services stream is, what's your infrastructure for supporting customer relations on that? Because people are going to want something for their $9.99 a month. Or
Does
their $15
anybody
a month.
really run their own cloud 100%? I mean, I know for a long time Apple was using Microsoft's Azure.
Yeah.
And then they told folks that they were using S3 and Google Compute. I'm just looking at the current iOS security guide where this stuff seems to leak out. It looks like this is as of May of this year, last month. Apple does in fact use Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud Platform for some of its authentication.
I think the strength and diversity argument comes in here. If you can get your thing working on multiple platforms,
Multi-homed cloud.
Yeah.
And then if you can always switch from one to the other. And if every major cloud provider goes down, then we're all buggered anyway.
Remember when they used to say the internet was designed to survive a nuclear attack? Nobody says that much anymore.
Well, actually,
partly because I think it was apocryphal, right? It wasn't really.
Oh no! I interviewed what's his face, Roberts, about this because, well, I say interviewed. We were stuck in a taxi for an hour and we got talking.
Good way to interview somebody, yeah.
And yeah, they sold it to Congress on distributed computing, so that in the event of a nuclear war, if one hub gets taken down, it can route around it. And he said, yeah, no, that was honestly just what we told Congress to get funding, because any idiot would know that if you detonate a nuclear bomb, the EMP is going to knock out vast swathes of infrastructure.
You can't
it's going to go anyway.
A giant hole in
really
Pittsburgh.
sold it to Congress.
Yeah.
And they heard this and were just like, yep, okay, we'll give you the funds to do that.
It does. The internet does route around damage.
Oh, it does,
right?
yeah, but you can't route around a nuclear war.
There are limits to the scope of the damage it can route around.
So... But yet, even saying the internet routes around damage, you could see things like Google just go down. Why isn't it? It's not routing around whatever is going on right now.
Yeah. I think Google's just such a monolith. These large cloud services are so monolithic that it's kind of like the 1990 telephone exchange that went down, the AT&T outage that went out. Just somebody installing a standard upgrade which caused a feedback loop and spread throughout the entire network. If something like that can take out a major cloud or a major telcos network, you've got to have diversity in there, because otherwise you're wide open to losing everything.
Meanwhile, red dots on Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Sites, Groups.
Google Plus is up.
Google Plus is up.
All 10 people were...
Google Plus is up.
You're a great optimist.
Cloud search
Literally
is up.
tens of people happy.
It launches a premium collaboration tool for enterprise customers.
That's a lot of red dots on the Google status board. And they said they would let us know by 2:33.
It's just lucky this is Sunday this is happening. Not Monday.
No.
Well, can you imagine the howls if this were a Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the outages mailing list is going absolutely nuts at the moment looking at this. They're just like...
I did hear...
Well, it points out the physical limitations of the cloud.
I did hear a lot of
You've just
people-
talked about how the fact is that we haven't had it roll. It's not as if one data center went down and the rest of Google's infrastructure said we're picking up the slack until we can fix it. It's gone widespread, which means that someone at Google is going to have a lot of explaining to do after they fix this.
Oh, their weekend is toast.
Well, actually, I heard
Do they even have weekends in that culture?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so, no.
Yeah.
It's just like you stagger people, but given the state of Google's contracting workforce at the moment, it's just like, well, you're going to pay me a bit more to get me out of bed.
Do you think? I think people aren't going to say to Apple tomorrow, "Oh, well, Google was down. Now you're down.
No.
Now why are you going to services?" I don't think people pay that much attention. to it.
Well, there's a big difference between what tech journalists tend to pay attention to versus
I'm
what...
looking at the New York Times tech section. Not one word about it right now.
No.
You've got to understand, it's Sunday. Some of us need days off as well. You know? It's just like... It's like every time Facebook has some really bad news, they drop it at 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Because back in the days of print, that used to be a good way to kill a story because no one read the Saturday newspapers. What it does these days is piss off an enormous amount of tech journalists who are just like, right, that's tomorrow's.
Well, there is no weekly news cycle anymore. At this point, you would even say there might not even be a daily news cycle. It's almost quarter daily in some ways.
Unless the news drops, around about Hawaiian time, then someone's going to be reporting it somewhere, be it in US, China, UK, whatever.
Meanwhile, there's a big red dot over the United States, and
if we all have to start staying up until 9 p.m. Honolulu time to find out what's going on in the world, I'm going to be very cross with you for planting that suggestion, Ian.
I'm not a morning person myself, so no.
Let's just check.
It does look like a measles outbreak at the moment.
It does, doesn't it? Let's just check Apple's system status. Actually, some yellows on here, which mean issues. Doesn't look like Apple offers a red dot, only green or yellow. So
yeah, well, that would be bad PR.
They're actually. I'm wondering now if it's more than Google. Documents in the cloud issue, iCloud backup issue,
iMessage issues,
iMessage issue. So let's just check. Let's click on that link and see. Less than 1% of users affected. That's not so significant. So. Although Apple, it's fewer than 1%, I believe. But okay.
Okay, hang on. All I think linked Gmail accounts are down on iOS.
So this is interesting. We'll watch this.
iOS.
We'll continue to watch it. We do want to talk a little bit about WWDC. It's tomorrow. Apple's big event. They cleared the boards by Ending our long national nightmare after 4 years of waiting, the new iPod Touch is finally here.
Who says Apple has run out of ideas?
That's
Like a 4-year-old
innovation,
platform
my
and put a
keister.
faster processor in it.
They shipped a new MacBook Pro as well.
Actually, before we move on, I just want to show you one quick
Karsten,
thing.
look at those.
God.
What do those spikes
This
mean?
this is down detector. The spike means
These are people complaining about Vimeo,
complaining about
Verizon,
things being
AT&T, Crunchyroll, Shopify, Discord,
I love how
Comcast.
Comcast is like a
Oh
mountain
my God,
range,
Pokemon
but, you
Go
know,
is down. Instagram, YouTube. So those are tweets complaining about service outages.
Yes.
CenturyLink, Cox, EA. Seems to be
Not
either.
Twitch.
I think people are just.
Twitch and Comcast look like mountain
I like
ranges.
how
They're up
Reddit
and down
keeps
the whole
going
time.
though. Reddit is just fine.
This is why you don't use Twitter to find out how things are going.
Do you know when you go on a website and you wait for the ad slow and it slows down with AdWords being down? I'm guessing the whole entire web
my
is
God.
gonna be-
Ooh, that's a good
advertising
point.
infrastructure,
Yeah.
even Mint, Tinder, but
Tinder looks like it's got a fraught relationship.
Apple Store.
With,
Well, also, I mean,
Last FM.
so Saturday night was prime Tinder time, so
Yeah.
you know it's.
Tinder.
not Uber Eats.
Hey, but Google Plus is still.
Postmates. Oh God, what will people do for food?
Literally tens of people overjoyed.
Now, is this
it.
volume from people who can't get on Google and so they go on these
These are
other
rel-
services?
these are-
This number of complaints.
Yeah.
Twitter complaints. A lot of services. Etsy.
Yeah.
Blogger. That's a Google service, of course. Even Wix, which is not. Interesting.
Going on.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Wow, that's scary.
Karsten, break in anytime.
Someone's just commented on the boards. Usenet's still up, you know.
Maybe
bravo.
Usenet is that part of the internet. Usenet is that part of the internet that will survive the nuclear.
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel like it's more than Google, but I don't know. I
No,
just feel
I-
like there's something
maybe.
else going on.
Maybe Google
is-
is just that thoroughly enmeshed with everything else at this point.
Something is going seriously weird.